Let's get started. As you know, HubSpot Insights sunsetted this week. And here to guide us through that transition to Breeze Intelligence is Brian Lesh. He's a HubSpot certified trainer and specializes in CRM implementation, training, optimization. He already has a background in customer service. So he helps businesses streamline their marketing and sales processes through data-driven strategies. Today, Brian's going to break down what's changing, how to optimize Breeze Intelligence credits, and how to keep your HubSpot automation running smoothly. So please join me in welcoming Brian.
Thanks, Mary. Yeah, so as Mary said, kind of a pretty big change HubSpot had this week where they have officially moved from HubSpot Insights over to Breeze Intelligence. That's been a process that's been going on for several months now. And this week they officially, on Monday, was officially the last day that there'll be anything coming in through Insights. So this is going to just guide you on what that previous system entailed, what the new Breeze Intelligence has, how to transition your platform from one to the other, what's changing for you, things like that. So just looking forward to showing you that information and helping guide you along the way. As Mary said, my name is Brian Lesh. I'm a HubSpot certified trainer. Been working in HubSpot for about 10 years. I started off as a HubSpot user. The company that I was working for at the time became HubSpot users, and we onboarded, and I helped manage the transition from our team's previous CRM into HubSpot and got us going using it. Found that I really liked it, and after a couple of years, I transitioned to moving to working in different agencies where I've was able to help people get themselves set up in HubSpot and help train people on HubSpot and help people with that. And now I've been with Wider for a few years, and just really happy to help you all out with this today. So I've also got about 40 HubSpot certifications, and I've even been in some HubSpot Academy courses. And there's my social on there if you want to add me on LinkedIn or shoot me an email. We'll put up some more contact info at the end of all of this. So today's agenda, first I'm just going to highlight at a high level what HubSpot Insights did, what it was, and what has happened with HubSpot Insights. Then we'll spend a lot more time on Breeze Intelligence, just showing you what that new system is, what Breeze Intelligence does, how it's different, how it's better. In what ways is it maybe not as good, and then a live demo showing you how to use this stuff yourself, and then I'll open it up for some Q&A at the end. So that's kind of a high level agenda of what we're going to run through today. So to start, I'm going to go over HubSpot Insights. So as we've mentioned, this official sunset date on HubSpot Insights was the 17th, so Monday. So we are a few days now past that point. HubSpot Insights is no longer providing any new data. So what was HubSpot Insights? HubSpot Insights was HubSpot's built-in company data enrichment tool. It was a database of that HubSpot had gathered from from various places on the internet, and they built an internal database that had information on most companies. So when you had a new contact or a new company get added to your HubSpot portal, HubSpot would match that domain to the company in their database, and it would pull in the information that it had. So it pulled that information from different third-party sources, doing different web crawling and crowdsourcing, and then it automatically populated those company records with key details. So it had that list of stuff. When a new company went in, it just automatically pushed it in there. So this is something that's just been going on for as long as you've been using HubSpot. And it's, you probably didn't even realize much was happening along that until they decided to sunset it and move on to something new. So this is just kind of part of HubSpot. New domain goes in, company name gets added, some various company information, to various levels of accuracy were automatically populated on those company records. So I'll just show you a bit more about how that worked and what it's changing to. As we've said, the sunset date, the official sunset date was March 17th. So as of Monday, Insights is no longer populating anything into your HubSpot portals. It's adding no new data updates after that. any account, if you're a HubSpot user and your HubSpot portal was created after September 18th of last year, you've never had access to HubSpot Insights. So you've been getting none of this information to begin with. So this is just basically anyone who had a portal from before September 18th has always been receiving data from Insights. And up through Monday, that was continually populating as long as you didn't opt into Breeze. So if at any time between last year and March 17th, you decided to start using Breeze Intelligence, if you opt into using Breeze Intelligence, that automatically opts you out of receiving any more Insights data. So basically, once you go to Breeze Intelligence, there's no going back to Insights. And obviously now there's no going back period because it doesn't exist anymore. And yeah, HubSpot's shifted towards an AI-powered enrichment with Breeze Intelligence. So it's leveraging AI, it's more accurate, it has more data, and it is a better product, which I'll go over a bit more as we work through this. So that's just a high level of what HubSpot Insights was. This is a list of properties, and we're going to send this slide deck out. You'll receive this information afterward, so you'll be able to look at these properties. But these are the properties that Insights has been populating. They were only in company properties, so there were various company properties, and Insights was populating that. If you've ever been on a if you've ever been on a company record and you saw that little eye right there, which on the image on the right, that says that if you hover over it, this property was filled from the HubSpot Insights database. So any property that had that little symbol next to it, that meant that it was a Insights populated property. If you went in and changed that, if you took, in this particular example, if I changed computer software to something else, to marketing, then that eye would go away because then it was manually populated. But in any case, if you saw that, that's still there. So any of the data that was previously populated by HubSpot Insights is still in there, and it'll still show that it was populated by Insights. It's just not going to be adding any new ones. So if you get a new company that's added to your portal this week, not going to have the new data. But you can see here, those were the properties that it was populating. And now it didn't populate all of them. This was an important thing to know. These were not. This is the full list of things that Insights can populate, but it didn't always have all that information. It would somehow have some of it. Very rarely all of it. So if someone wasn't raising money, for example, then it wouldn't have the information about their money raised. But it would generally have a good amount of that data. So what's going to happen to the existing Insights data? As I said, any existing Insights data will remain in your company records. So if you've previously received, if you've been getting, enrichment from HubSpot Insights up through this week, that information is not going to just get deleted. It's going to stay there until you overwrite it with something else. So it's not just being removed. They will still be auto-populating the company name, and it's still adding company logos. So it's still matching the domain from a new company. If you add a new company to your portal, even if you're not paying Breeze for anything, if you put a new company in your portal, it will still match that domain to a company name and add the company name, and then it will put the company's logo in the image. There was a brief time, and if your portal was created after September 18th and before January or February, there was a brief period of time when it wasn't doing that. So there were portals where you were having companies come in with no name, and so thankfully they added that feature back, so you won't have that missing. And they did go in and backfill, so anyone who was added during that time and didn't get those company names populated, they did go back and update that. So you will have that data, but there's no further updates. So any of these other properties listed here other than company name are not going to get populated anymore. All of those are essentially sunset. Some of them have been repurposed, which I'll get into later. So what does it mean for your account? Any workflows, reports, or lists that are relying on HubSpot Insights may need some adjustments. Some of these properties may not be in use at all anymore, and some of them are now going to be populated by Breeze Intelligence. So you're going to evaluate all of that. And I have we'll go through later the the steps that you should take, what you're going to want to do to make sure that you're not losing anything on that. Any workflows, lead scoring, or reports that's using HubSpot Insights data also might stop working correctly. Remember that information is not going to be populated anymore. Static info, any of the old contacts, old companies, that's still going to work, but you're not going to be getting new information added from Insights, so that's not going to be adding anything to that. And without action, you're not going to get automatic company data enrichment. So most of those properties that I listed that were on the previous list, you're not going to get that information more without signing up for Breeze Intelligence. If you rely on auto enrichment, Breeze Intelligence is your new solution for that. So what is Breeze Intelligence? Breeze Intelligence is HubSpot's AI-powered replacement for HubSpot Insights. HubSpot's been leaning really heavily into AI, and this is part of that. So they're using a large language models and advanced data sources to get a better picture of all of this data. The data that's coming from Breeze Intelligence is more accurate than the data that you are getting from Insights, and they have more of it. There is more data, and it's more accurate, and just more in depth. So it provides more accurate real-time company. And an additional thing, there's contact enrichment. So they do have some contact enrichment capabilities in Breeze Intelligence as well. It's also going to support using buyer intent, taking the buyer intent tool and pushing contacts and companies into your portal from there. And it's going to support form shortening. I'll get into that a bit more later as well, but that's just a high level of what Breeze is. Here's a table to overview the two of them and just a high level of what the big differences are. The data and scope with Breeze Intelligence, it's AI-driven, LLM-powered, real-time enrichment for contacts and companies. HubSpot Insights had a static database and it was companies only. HubSpot Insights built this. They built their database. They put information in there, and they didn't regularly update it. It was updated occasionally, but for the most part, it was a static list that was just sitting in their database. The new Breeze Intelligence data is continuously being updated. So what you might get if you enrich someone today and then you enrich again in a month, you'll get any new information that's come in. If their revenue's gone up, for example, it'll reflect in that. There's more attributes, obviously, that you can enrich. We're looking at over 40 with Breeze Intelligence compared to the 25 that you had for Insights. Once again, it's not always going to have all of the information. It's not always going to have every property. It's just that's the list of complete properties that are available to be enriched. You have buyer intent and automation, so you can actually build automation with Breeze Intelligence. You can have it in workflows. You can use the buyer intent tool to add companies into your portal from there, and you can use it to shorten forms. There was none of that in Insights. The biggest downside, obviously, to Breeze Intelligence is you'll see that on the pricing model. Insights was free. It came with your portal. There was no fee, and it just enriched every company that came in. Breeze Intelligence charges you on a credit-based system. So each enrichment is a credit. That doesn't mean each property that enriches is a credit. It just means each company or contact that you enrich charges you a credit. And the credit costs are as listed there. I'm going to go into that a bit more in depth later, but 100 credits is $30. It's not a ton of money, 30 cents per, and that number gets better with the higher amounts that you're enriching. Those are monthly costs, so you can't just buy a batch of them, use them once, and then stop. They want you on a monthly setup. So if you're gonna need a few hundred, you could potentially just do 100 a month and then slowly get it all caught up. As I said at the bottom there too, continuously updated with new AI-driven data for Breeze Intelligence. HubSpot Insights, no updates after March 17th. And even back when they were updating it, it was not, it wasn't a continuous update. It was occasional updates as far as enhancing and improving the information that you're getting there. Here's a list of the properties, the company and contact properties that Breeze Intelligence can enrich. So you'll see there is some overlap. Some of these properties are the same property that they were enriching before with Insights. So if you use Breeze to enrich a company and that company already had previously been enriched by Insights, some of those properties are just going to overwrite the property that we had from Insights. So city, for example, number of employees, that's another one that they've just repurposed. So it's not creating a bunch of new properties. There are some new properties that it's creating. For example, employee range is one which is new for Breeze Intelligence. That one is only going to appear on a Breeze Intelligence once you've started using Breeze Intelligence. And it will match up more or less with the number of employees. I'll show you that on a live example later. I'm going to go into a HubSpot portal and show you what a couple of these look like. And then totally new, as you see on the right, is the contact properties. It's got a variety of different contact properties. You've got employment role, it's pretty useful, employment seniority, and some various opt-in, opt-out, and items like that. So you can probably think with, if you're doing ABM, or if you're working on some of these companies, you can take a look at a company, enrich that company, get some more data and identify, yes, this is a great match for me. Then I can look on the companies, on the associated contacts to that company, look at the employees. And then if this is a company that we want to target, I can go in and start enriching the employees. And then eventually I'll find through that which of the employees is someone that maybe I should be reaching out to. So you can start kind of thinking with how you might use this. So how does it work? How do you get enrichment done? There's a few different ways to do it. The easiest is automatic enrichment. And I'll show you this screen later in our HubSpot portal. But this is the enrichment screen. When you go into settings, then data management, and then data enrichment, that's where you'll have to go to enable automatic enrichment for contacts and or companies. It's also where you would enable manual enrichment. You can see in our portal, we do manual enrichment. We don't have the automatic on. But if you see the first one there is automatically enrich new records. So when a record is created with a company domain name or contact, any empty properties are going to get filled. So this means any record created through HubSpot, manual, integration, form fill, etc. On the second row down is going to be imported records as well. So if you want to just dive right in on HubSpot, on Breeze Intelligence, and you want to just have everyone enriched, you'll have to take we'll show you how to evaluate how much that's going to cost you. But you can turn those automatic enrichments on, and it's just going to, anytime a new contact or a new company appears in your portal, it's just going to enrich the data and take up one of your credits. So if you're getting a lot of companies and a lot of new contacts, that price can add up. So there's some alternative ways to do this if you don't want to just let it go with all of them, right? But this is the best way to have fully fresh data, almost no effort. Obviously that comes at a cost, because this is just going to do it automatically. You don't have to do anything, but it's going to cost more than if you're either manually enriching these or using a workflow to enrich these. So that's where that would be done. And like I said, if you're using automatic enrichment, these next two slides, you don't even need to think about doing any of this, because it's already getting enriched for you. If you use that bottom one, the bottom item there, that's continuously enrich records. So if that essentially just means anytime they get new data on a company, it's just going to update it again, and likewise use another one of your credits. So this is the most expensive route that you could go, but it's the best route. Oh, and you can also select whether you want contacts or companies or both. So if you're only interested in enriching companies, then you would just check that left side. And if you're interested in both companies and contacts, you check both sides. Manual enrichment. So let's say you decide that's going to cost too much. We get thousands of new companies and new contacts every month or so, and it's going to cost too much money. A lot of them aren't even that, there may be a lot of the companies and contacts that appear in your portal aren't necessarily good matches for you. So you don't need to enrich all of those. Then you would go in, a next option is to do it manually. If you want to do it manually, it's very simple. You open up a contact or a company that you want to enrich, and then you would just click actions. If you look at the image that I have on the right there, I'm on Brian Halligan's contact page in our HubSpot account. and I just click action, and then you see enrich record. That's the option that appears there. When you click on that, it'll give you another screen, which I'll show you on the next slide, and that'll let you just agree to go and enrich the record. Similarly, if you want to enrich in bulk, let's say you're doing an event and you get a bunch of registrations for an event and you want to enrich everyone that's going to that event, you could do that just like I showed here. So you could just check, you could pull up a list of people. You could do this from a list or from the contact page. And you just check the little box to check all of the companies or all of the contacts. And then the first option right there is enrich records. If you click on that enrich records, it'll enrich everyone that's on that list. So if you have a event that you're doing, if you went to a trade show and you got a bunch of leads and you want to enrich all of them, then you could do that from a list, for example. So this is the best for high value leads, quick data checks, and cost, because you can control the cost at this point. It's not going to just keep enriching people, and it's not going to just enrich everyone that comes into your portal. So you can say, okay, we have 100 that we're going to use a month. So I know that I can only enrich 100 this month, and then any more, I'll wait till next month. So if you're on a budget, this is generally the best way to do it. And if you want to just be sure that you're managing it and be sure that you've got your costs under control, this is the best way to do that. And when you do a manual enrichment, so once I've clicked on enrich record on the right there, it's going to bring you to a screen that looks like this. So this is your confirmation before actually enriching. At this point, I have not been charged a credit. This screen is what appears after you click enrich. You can now look at that list and see, okay, these are the properties that it's going to provide me. Is this worth enriching? If I clicked on this and only two, let's say if I clicked on this one to enrich and the only two that it offered me to enrich were industry and number of employees, and I already have that information from Insights, maybe at that point I would decide, okay, I actually don't know that I need to enrich this one because we already have most of this information. Maybe it'll update it to be a bit more accurate, but I'm sure I have a ballpark at this point, right? But you can look at it and see, okay, is this what you want to see? And you can also see here, in this particular example, it's only giving me 8 properties that I can enrich. So there's the list of 40 that are available to be enriched, but in this case, they only had the 8. So it's not always going to enrich everything, right? It only enriches what it has the data on. But at this point, you would be able to evaluate, is it necessary based on what you can enrich? And if I go ahead and I click enrich record on that at the bottom there, that's when I'll be charged the credit. And it even shows here next to it, I had at this time 79 credits available. So if I exceed that, the number, if I was enriching 79 or 80 people at this time, it would actually bump us up to the next tier. So we would, move up a tier in pricing, right? The other way that you can do this, and this is kind of the middle area, right? If you don't want to just go all out with enrichment and just enrich everyone, but you don't want to have your hands on it and have to manually be in there enriching everyone, you can set up a workflow where you enrich using the workflow. So you can see here this option. In this example, I've created a workflow where if a contact fits our ICP, then we enrich them. So then you would just need to set up the ICP so that it's matching, right? And it could be something, if this company has filled out form X, Y, and Z, or this company is, in a location, some of that data you may not have, but you could choose the triggers, and then you can have the workflow actually do the enrichment for you. So in this case, it would be, you would be able to control what's getting enriched to some extent, but you don't have to manually go in and continually do it yourself. So yeah, this is where it'll automatically enrich them when they enter a workflow. That can be part of a larger workflow or just a workflow that just does this. And you can just choose the specific actions that make you want to do that. Form submission, meeting invite, deals created, and anything. You choose that based on your business needs. But yeah, you can do that through automation here. It will charge you 1 credit each time an enrichment happens. So anytime someone enrolls in this workflow, it'll enrich the contact or the company, and then that will charge you 1 credit. In addition, there's the buyer intent tool, which the buyer intent tool you have regardless of whether you're using Breeze Intelligence. That's the tool where you can go on and see different companies that are visiting pages on your website that are of high intent. if you're using that tool and you have Breeze Intelligence, you can actually enrich from that tool and then use a credit from that tool, or from, you can use a credit from there to add them from that tool into your portal. So it's another place that you could use Breeze Intelligence to actually enrich them. If you see this company that's been on your website and they've visited some pages that put them in a, high intent, it suggests that they're of high intent, you could then enrich them, get a bit more data on them, and push them into your portal by using a credit. In addition, they have form shortening. That's another way that you can use your Breeze credits. Form shortening reduces form fields while still capturing the full data. So what happens is when a visitor begins filling out a form, they'll type their email address in, and then HubSpot will check its data set for any existing data on there. And if it has fields that it can enrich from Breeze, it will remove those from the form. So if you have, job title on there, right? That's one of the contact properties that Breeze can enrich for a contact. If you have job title as an option on a form, someone types in their email address, but Breeze already knows their job title, it would remove that from them. So that can help improve your conversion rates by lowering friction for visitors. That will also charge you 1 credit every time it does that. So basically every form submission that comes through, if it's using Breeze properties, it will charge you a credit as well. So you just kind of have to decide, which I'm showing you all the options and everything that you can do, but you have to decide on your own what, how many credits do I want to buy? And then what of these are important to me to be spending credits on? Here's how the cost works. So obviously, as I've said, it's not free. There's a credit system. It's a monthly subscription, essentially. They use credits for enrichment, intent data, and form shortening. And then you buy them in packs. So if you buy 100 credits, that's $30 a month. So 100 credits, if you pay $30 a month, you get 100 credits a month. And every month you can use 100. You can make 100 enrichments, and then you'll hit your limit. So you got to keep an eye on your limit, because if you enrich 150, they'll just let you enrich 150 and up you to 200 credits for the next month. So now you're paying for 200 credits. You're paying $60 a month. If you get a lot of new content, or you're doing a lot of enrichment, you can buy a pack of 1,000 or 10,000. So if you have a very large, if you're getting a lot of contacts or a lot of companies, if you're an enterprise level, you can get that price down quite a bit. Because as you see, if you're paying for 10,000, that's 7 cents per credit compared to the 30 cents per credit you're paying for 100 of them. So it just depends on the size of your database, and we'll go over how to determine all of that in some of the later slides. Now, if you want to just get all the info in there as best you can on your database right now, they do have a one-time backfill enrichment that you can purchase. That's $5,000. And it's up to 1 million records. So if you have a huge database, hundreds of thousands of companies / contacts in there, and you want to just get everything enriched all at once, you can pay $5,000 and it'll do that. Obviously, that's only useful if you have a very large database. If your database is, a few thousand or 10,000, you can buy 100 or a couple hundred credits a month, and you can have all that caught up pretty quickly. So, and the credits don't roll over either. So if you're paying for 100 credits and you enrich 50, you just lose those 50. And the next month you're starting over at 100. So you want to keep an eye on that. That's the pricing. So how do you assess your needs? Because you'll have to figure out how you want to, how you want to do this. Which way do you want to go? So first, take a look at the impact on your CRM. You want to audit your current workflows, lead scoring, and lists that used insights. So if you have workflows that are triggered, for example, based on the industry that a company's in, you're going to want to take a look at that workflow, because that's no longer going to be populated. So any new companies, you're not going to have that data unless you're paying for Breeze. And in some cases, these numbers are going to change. So if you were using revenue, for example, and you had, insights provided the revenue of companies, it wasn't 100% accurate, but you probably over time could have figured out, okay, maybe it's not exactly right, but I know within this range, this is the kind of companies that we're looking for. The numbers that are going to start coming in from in Breeze Intelligence, they might not be exactly the same. So you're going to want to keep an eye on that. Going through this, it isn't as difficult. It's not as difficult as going through workflow by workflow. What you can do is kind of what that example I showed on the right is, and I'll show you an example within the portal, but you can just go into the property itself, and then you can see the places that property is being used. So for example, this property that I had clicked on, number of employees in our demo portal, was only being used on one form. So in that case, I wouldn't need to worry about it, right? Because it's not a workflow, it's not a list, it's just a thing on a form, so people can override it. That one I would just skip. But if that was in a workflow, then I might want to take a look at that workflow. You're going to want to determine how many records you need to enrich, and I'll show you how to do that in a moment. Decide if you want or need buyer intent data, if you want or need the form shortening, and if that's valuable in your use case. And then you want to update automation settings to leverage enriched data effectively. Then every month, I would recommend you go in, monitor your usage so that any tier increases are predictable. So if you see yourself pushing up near the limit, you know that you're about to get charged for the next tier. So, just to be mindful of that, or to stop doing it for the next. You can always toggle them all off once you hit your limit. And if needed, like I said, there's a one-time backfill that you can do. So here's how you'll determine your credit needs. First, identify your data enrichment needs. So determine if you want to enrich contacts, companies, or both. Consider if buyer intent data and form submission or forms shortening will be utilized in your case. And then you want to audit existing workflows that rely on enriched data. So just to identify how necessary all of this stuff is for you. Then you want to calculate your expected monthly enrichment volume. So take a look at how many contacts and companies are created per month in your portal. How many form submissions happen per month? And if you're using form shortening, each submission uses a credit. And then any buyer intent signals if you're going to be using the buyer intent tool. So how many companies do you plan on adding based on intent? A note on this: if you're going to look through let's say you intend to just enrich companies, so you want to go through and see how many new companies are we adding to our portal every month. You don't want to just look at the average, because if you have it on automatic, you're going to just be charged for essentially the highest month, right? Because if your business is seasonal, for example, let's say in November and December, you average 100 or 200 new companies get added to your portal, but then the rest of the year it's like 50. If you averaged all that out, maybe it works out to 100 would be sufficient. But if you have it running on automatic, when November hits, you're going to enrich 200 companies. So it's going to bump you up to that price tier. And then when January, February rolls around and your numbers go back down to 50, it's not going to just lower you back to the 100. You are now at the 200. So for estimating the costs, especially if you're going to be letting this go automatically, you're going to want to estimate using your highest month. So I would look over the core. I would take each month for the past year and see what each month totaled out to and use that number. And then also take a look at form submissions if you're going to be using the form shortening tool. Then you want to estimate credit usage. So, one credit is one enriched record. It's very simple, right? So if you're getting so in this example, you get 500 new contacts every month, 300 new companies, and you do 200 form submissions, and you want to use form shortening in the form submissions. That's 1,000 credits per month. Obviously, in this example, that would be, let's say that's your highest month, so that you know that 1,000 should cover me for all of that. That's assuming you want to enrich everyone as they come in. And then you just want to monitor it over time. So use the Breeze Intelligence dashboard to track your credit consumption. You could start, one thing you can do is you can just start with 100 and start manually doing it and seeing how much this is helping you, and then start to scale up as needed. There's no issue with buying the lowest 100 a month at $30 a month, and then if you see that you want to use 200 or 300, just keep going over, and it'll just upcharge you up to the next level. And then you want to optimize your automations and workflows to minimize any unnecessary enrichments. So just make sure you're not you don't have a workflow that's re-enriching someone after you've already enriched them, for example. Cool. So that's essentially an overview of how this works. So there's a few things in the tool itself that I want to show you. So I'm going to show you a few little examples. I'll go into a contact in a company and I'll enrich them. And I'll also show you where some of these things that I was just talking about were at. So let me pop to another screen here. Let me just pop to, sorry, 1 second. Here's the property. So I'm going to share this tab. So you see here, this is the annual, this is if you're going to do an audit of your properties. So annual revenue, that is one of the properties that has been enriched by Breeze or by HubSpot Insights. So now you want to see, am I using annual revenue in any workflows or any lists or anything that might be affected by them not being populated anymore? So all you have to do is go into your contact or into your property. This should be a company property, but just for this example, and you would just load it up, and then you can just click here, and you can see this is where you're using it, right? So I can see here that I have 2 workflows that use this property. I have 1 list and I have 1 view. So now I would just want to click on that workflow and see, okay, how are we using this? Is there some data that I'm not going to get anymore? Is this going to cause this workflow to just straight up stop working? And then you'll want to take a look at that. So it's very easy. You could go into, all you have to do is go into your company properties. There's the annual revenue. You can see this one, we're using it in 7 places. So you would just work through that list, right? And if you go to number of employees, for example, right? Number of employees, you can see it's a HubSpot created property. That means that one is a Insights property. So Insights has been doing that. And it looks like here it's just on a card. So this one I wouldn't need to worry about and I could just skip it. But that'd be kind of the process you would follow for your audit. You would just kind of I would just go one by one. You could grab the list from the slides and just work your way right through it. Make sure you're not missing anything and you're not losing anything important. So that's where you would find that. Now this is your dashboard where you'll see the enrichment. This is going to show you your credit balance. So this will show you how many of your credits you've used throughout the course of the month. This is the range that your credits are reset based on. And you'll see if you go over, then it's going to now charge for the next tier. So you'll want to keep an eye on where you're at there. If you come down here to the enrichment settings, this is where you'll turn on auto enrichment, or you could turn on, enriching imported records, or just manual enrichment. If you're, for example, letting your team just manually enrich as needed, but you're up through a certain point, you could just go in every month and look at, or every day, every couple of days, if you're the one that's managing this, and you could just see how close we are to our limit. And then if you get to your limit for the month and you don't want to have to upgrade, all you have to do is click these 2 off, and then no one will be able to enrich through the end of that period. And then you would turn it back on when you get to that point. See here, see some questions coming through, but it looks like none are for me yet. Now I'm going to show how to enrich. So this is an example company. This is all just public data, but you can see this company was enriched previously by HubSpot Insights. So you can see HubSpot Insights had populated this info. It looks like it gave it, I think that's $1 billion. Let me see, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, $1 billion. So it gave it $1 billion in revenue, put in its city, country, some information. This was all being populated by Insights. So this is a card that I made that just shows Insights properties. So yours will look different than this, but this is just to show you everything that it has. These were all of the Insights properties right here. And this is all, and you can see the ones that it didn't enrich, they don't have the little eye, right? And it was giving, a good amount of data. Down here are the Breeze properties. So you can see a lot of these, there's a lot of overlap. So there's annual revenue. It's the same property, right? But this is still, this hasn't been enriched. We're going to do this on the call, but it has not been enriched yet with Breeze data. So we'll see what changes and we'll see what updates and we'll take a look. And you can see it's public info, public false. They've got about 5,000 employees. Here's something worth noting. You see here, they have employee range. Now that's the Insights property. Insights is also using number of employees. So it's going to give you number of employees and a range. So you can choose which one you want which one you want to use for your workflows, and we'll see how that updates, because we have a 5,000 right now. So before it's been enriched, it's at 5,000. So yeah, so I'll just go through this, and you can see all these. It's got the year founded, so it's got a lot of information from Insights. Once again, this is stuff that if Brain Lab was added to our portal today and we didn't enrich it with Breeze, none of this information would be here. So this is going forward. You're not going to get this information. This is stuff that's only, that was in the past. You're only going to get this info if you're paying for Breeze credits now. So if I want to go in and enrich, all I have to do is click on actions and, actions here, I believe. Yeah, there it is. Actions here, and then enrich record. So if I click on that, enrich record, and now this is what I did here. This shows the properties that can be enriched. So you can see here we've got the employee range, the country region code. These are the properties that it's actually going to enrich for me. It's not going to enrich anything else. So we can see here we are going to get an employee range and number of employees update. We're going to get an industry update. We'll get some company keywords, which it wasn't providing for us before. And that's what we're going to get. So I see as of today, let me just press that and let's see what we get. Sometimes it takes a moment, but we'll see what we get here. There we go. So now you can see it's updated some of this info. So number of employees is now down to 2,000. It was at 5,000. So you can see they have a bit more, they have a bit of a, they've refined it. This is going to be more accurate than what you were getting with Insights. Employee range 1 to 5,000. And you can see it's industry. It's got the industry group. You can see the company LinkedIn there. So it's given us some really cool info. It's updated all of these. And anything that still has the I means it didn't touch it. That just stayed there because it's the same as what it had before. So there was nothing to update. So you can see how that'll work. It looks like the revenue, they had it more or less accurate. But this is a good example of something that you'd want to, if you're going to just dive right in, for example. Yeah, if you want to just dive right in and just be enriching everything, but you have workflows, for example, that are based off of the number of employees property, someone that you may have been filtering based on having 5,000 employees, this is the same company. It's now showing 2,000. So you're going to want to take a look at that because, the data is more accurate, but it's going in some places going to be new/different. And you can see here, it shows a little note here that the record was enriched, shows the 10 properties that were enriched. These are the new properties. And yeah, so when you come in, you can see that. It's now, so you'll be able to also filter based on has been enriched by Breeze. There's a property that you can use for your filters. So if you're editing a workflow, for example, you can, and you want to edit the number of employees section of a workflow, you could say, one of the branches could be they were enriched before Breeze. So on Insights, then that one gets filtered one way. And then if they've been enriched by Breeze, they filter another way. So just something worth noting. You can also enrich a contact. So we're going to enrich this guy. This is me. We're going to see what it gives me on myself to protect the innocent here. We'll go and enrich me. It looks like for me, it's got my country, employment, seniority, my employment role, LinkedIn. So let's see what it gives me. Well, this is new info for me. I'm not sure. But yeah, it does have us as consultant, business consultant. It's put that information in there, and it does have my correct LinkedIn URL. So pretty interesting. It is actually accurate because this was me testing this. I have not enriched myself before, and you can see here it did pull in my correct LinkedIn account, and it pulled in my correct role, and yeah, notes here that it has been enriched. So you can see very useful. So you can think with uses that you would have for this. If you're going into your companies, you see a couple contacts that are associated to a company that's maybe relevant, you could then click on that contact and enrich the contact that's associated to it, and you'll find more information on those people. And the other way that I wanted to show you is if you wanted to enrich multiple people at once. This is if you wanted to enrich Brian Halligan right here, for example. I would, if I wanted to, if this was, let's say this was a list of people that attended one of my events or something like that, you just click that to list them all, and then you would just click on enrich records, and you see it's going to show overwrite values. In this case, because there's 2 of them, it doesn't show me what we're going to overwrite, but it's the same. If I click this enrich records, it's going to enrich those 2, these 2 as well. So very simple. You can do it from a list as well. If you go to a list, you'll have the same option. You just click that, and it's the first option there. Once you have Breeze Intelligence activated, you see, you just click that and you can enrich. So pretty interesting, pretty easy. Very easy to use. I'm happy to help anyone with it if you have any questions. The last thing I'm going to show before we get to Q&A, and I know we're nearing the time here, is if you wanted to build it from a workflow. Also super simple. I go into a company-based workflow, or you could do contact, either one. But in this example, I'll just do company-based. Go to next. And you set up your trigger. So whatever trigger it is, this company has a contact that filled out a form on X, Y, or Z website, whatever. And then you just add in, you just go here. First item is AI, Breeze Intelligence Enrichment. Should this action overwrite existing data? So this is your call. If you wanted to overwrite data that already exists, most notably from Insights, that you can make that call. So if I say yes, let's say, then it's just going to overwrite everything that we've got. And there it is. It's right there. So when I turn this on, anyone that meets that enrollment criteria will get enriched. So very simple to set up. Obviously, you could work it into a larger workflow. If you have a workflow that kind of qualifies people for your business, you could have that workflow also enrich the contact or the company before it's sent to a rep, so that the rep has a bit more information once they get that lead over to them. All right. So that is essentially what I had. I can open it up for question. I got about 10 minutes to answer some questions here. If you want to talk to me directly, or if you have any questions or need help with any of this, you can scan that code and you can reach out to me. We're happy to assist you with this. And just open it up now for some questions if anyone has any questions or needs any assistance.
Yeah, there's one question in the queue. Mitch asked if Breeze is ever able to pull phone number and emails for contacts.
It currently cannot, but I would say I'd be quite surprised if it ever can pull email, because email is kind of what it uses to match everything. So that's kind of its, that's its, I don't know, source of truth, right, is the email address. So I think, there might be multiple Brian Leshes out there, but there's only one with my email address. So that's how it sorts that. And then phone, it's not currently on the list. It's not currently planned. But yeah, it's definitely a good suggestion. It'd be great to have it.
Is the buyer intent tool, is that mostly on the company side then, Brian?
It's company side, yeah.
Yeah, that might be
what
some Mitch was thinking of.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And that's where you'll see people who are visiting high intent pages on your site. And then from there, you could, enrich and add it to your,
So the buyer intent tool right now is limited to the company side. So it's not going to be able to say, okay, based on, what we know from our intelligence about this company, here's some contacts that you could reach out to. It doesn't do that yet.
I don't believe so. Yeah. The buyer intent tool could be its own, it could be kind of its own training webinar to discuss. It's actually a quite in-depth tool. As far as how Breeze relates to it, Breeze is essentially just giving you the option to pull people out of that atom to your portal and enrich them from there. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. If anybody's interested in a separate, talk on that and diving deep into the buyer intent tools that are now in HubSpot with Breeze, let us know. Mary will send out a follow-up email. You can just reply to that. We always are open to suggestions on what our next hug topic should be.
Yeah. Very good. Any other questions? Anyone else?
aren't any in the queue.
Okay.
James did put in the chat that he'd like to learn more about buyer intent. Thanks, James. We'll keep that in mind. If we play with it more for ourselves too, keep an eye on our socials. We always share stuff we're learning on there. Mary will note that one down.
Yes, yes. And I will be sending the recording and the deck afterwards with a bunch of helpful links for everybody.
The form shortening is interesting to me too. We haven't, admittedly, we haven't played with that for ourselves much yet, but it's something that's on my radar. So that could be another probably topic in itself, or maybe part of the buyer intent. I'm not sure, Brian.
Yeah.
Tori just asked a question if Breeze's intelligence is pulling from the same data that you use when in Breeze Copilot with the research prompting that's in Copilot. I'm guessing it is, but do you know, Brian?
Yeah, as far as I know, it is. It's the same data. They're not like it's not publicly listed where they're getting this data from. It's just that they're sourcing it, and they're using LLM and things like that. But it's there's no they don't say where they're getting it all from necessarily. But
I would guess though, since both of those tools are part of HubSpot's AI suite, that Tori, they're probably using the same like original data source.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, everyone. Is anyone else? I don't see anything else. Thanks for the kind words, Matt, and Brian's #1 fan. Thank you.
I think we know who that one is.
I think we do.
Our resident jokester.
Cool. Well, great. Thank you, everyone, for attending. This was very insightful, Brian, even though we're talking about Breeze Intelligence instead of Insights. So appreciate the information, and keep sending us questions, and look for my email later today or tomorrow morning.
Thanks, Mary. Thanks, Brian. Thanks, everybody, for joining.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.